Hello and welcome to the last lesson, number 13, in this tutorial series looking at how to create your own fully working Pacman game using Scratch. So far we have a completely working game. Everything is working fine. The only difference is that we don't have very much of a challenge because we've only got one ghost at the moment. We've also only got one super pill and we've only got a few of the tablets. There are also a few other game features which we could still add in. And so in this lesson, what I'm going to do is cover those features which will help the game to be more interesting, as well as showing you a few ideas that you could perhaps then go on to develop yourself, having hopefully picked up the skills along the way that will enable you to do that. So let's have a little look now at the first thing that we need to add to make this game. So step one is obviously to add in quite a few more of the tablets. So these are the small tablets that are around the maze here. I only have a few of them at the moment. So if you've got more than that, that's fine. What I'm going to do is do a fast forward on this video and I'm going to add in a few more of these tablets. Now, if you remember the previous video in which I showed you how to zoom in, what I'm going to do here is just select one of these tablets here, doesn't matter which one, let's go for that one there. I'm going to right click and duplicate it and put it roughly where I want the tablet to be, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. Right click, duplicate another one, and again put it roughly where I want it. Now, because this is only a fairly small screen here, if I want to zoom in, what I'm going to do is hold the control key down on my keyboard and then use the wheel on my mouse. Now that will zoom in the entire screen, so everything is zoomed in now, which means we can't see the duplicate button at the bottom here, but we can now see the maze and all these tablets much more clearly. So we can click on those and move them around to line them up just right. So I'm going to fast forward now and I'm going to add in a few more of these tablets. Okay, so there we go. I've added a few more of the tablets. You can obviously add as many as you want in there. You can create far more than I have. It could probably fit at least 2 or 3 times the number of dots on there if you wanted to. But the next thing that we'll need to do is to add some of these super tablets. So far, I've only got one super tablet in my entire game. So whereas I've got lots of these ordinary pills and I can increase my score, I can only gather one of these super tablets and then have the ghosts turn blue. Now we don't want too many of these, so I'm only going to add in 3 more of these and have 4 of these super tablets around the game. Now, really importantly, it's something that we did earlier on, or I did earlier on, you may have done as well, and that is in the big pill, if I can find it, there we are, pill 1. We named this one pill 1 earlier on, really useful because it's now hard, of course, to see which is the pill and which is the tablet here. But in the code for this, we obviously are broadcasting super pill, and then in the ghost, if I zoom in on this, when it receives super pill, it is waiting 20 seconds. Now we won't want that to be the case, of course, when we've got more of ghosts and more of the pills. So this is going to be reduced down now. So I'll take that back down to 10 seconds, I think. And then what I'm going to do is take pill 1 and I'm going to right click and duplicate it and position this one somewhere else. I'll put this one, actually I think I'll put this one up in the corner over here. So we don't want them to be too easy to get. Sometimes you want them to be, for it to be a bit of a challenge to get the pill, you have to commit to actually going all the way up into that corner. I'm going to do another one, and in fact I'm going to do this one over in this corner as well, up there like that. I've got one in the middle here. I think I might move that into the center there, and then maybe do another one in the center there. That's it. So I've got 4 tablets, or 4 super pills rather. I think that's fine. So if we run it now, any of those super pills will work. So if I just go and get this one, for example, here, there we are, the ghost turns blue. And of course, this ghost will now only turn blue for about 10 seconds. So if we just wait for that to go back, there we are. And then if I grab this tablet, there we are, the ghost has gone blue again. And that'll only be for about 10 seconds. Of course, you can change that time if you want to. That's entirely up to you. It's your game, your rules. So there we are. We've now got more of the tablets and we've got more of the super pills. So what's the next thing? Well, more challenge, because that's a lot for the ghost to for the Pacman rather to collect, but there's not much of a threat. That ghost is over here. And he's not really, I mean, yes, he's going to get around the maze, and he does get out of that maze easily enough. Don't forget that you will need to change these numbers up here. So in the ghost code, where we have the set distance, you'll need to play around with those numbers, and there'll be some combination. I've not really done much with these numbers. I can probably play around with them a little bit more. I might bring the 70 down to 50 perhaps at the moment. But you're going to have to play around with those to try and find the best combination for moving your ghost out of the area so they don't get caught up in one sort of part of the screen, unable to get around the maze. So play around with those numbers and just sit and watch the ghost and see what they're doing. Once you've got one ghost working perfectly, then it's time to duplicate that ghost. But it's not quite the same as duplicating the tablets or the sprites over here, because there's some code that we're going to have to change, as well as the appearance of the ghost itself. So here's this sprite 10, the first ghost. I'm going to right click on that and duplicate it. And we still get this copy of the ghost down here. Let's move it onto the left over here. And find the sprite, there it is down at the bottom here, sprite 57. Now with sprite 57 selected, there are 2 things that I want to change. I want to change the way it looks, so with the color of it, because they're not all red ghosts, and I also need to change some code. Let's start with the color. So with the ghost selected down there, I'm going to click on costumes. Now the second costume, the blue one, that's fine. We don't need to change that. It's this one up here. I wanted to change this costume and of course the name at the top as well. So let's click on the costume. Let's go to the fill button here. That's the little bucket there. And choose the color we're going to have. Let's bring the brightness back up so we can see these colors. And of course you can go for the traditional colors if you want to. I'm going to go for a green ghost, I think. There we are. We'll grab that green color there. That's lovely. And then with this selection, the fill selection already there, if I move over the square block and click, and then move over the oval block and click, there we are. We've now changed that ghost. And you can see over here, he now looks different. Now it's not a red costume anymore, so let's click up here and change this to green costume. There we go. So now let's go to code and have a look at the code and see what it is we need to change. Well, Scratch has done it for us to some extent. We'll just double check what's changed. But you can see at the top here, we're switching costume when the game begins to the green costume. So now we don't have red costume because there is no red costume for this sprite. We've only got the blue and the green. So that's fine up there. If we come down here further, there are no other references to the colors, so we're okay there. On the right hand side, this subroutine here is still okay. And again, when I receive Super Pill, we change the blue costume, that's fine. And then we switch back to the green costume. So as long as those have been changed, you're absolutely fine. Let's add rather another ghost. Let's right click and duplicate him again. Move this one somewhere else. Let's move this one Let's move it into the middle area here, perhaps a little bit more of a challenge. Move it just there. I'm moving it there, so it could go left, right, up and down. In fact, I might do the same for this ghost here. So it's sort of on the junction there a little bit, so there's a bit more of a choice. And while I'm at it, I'm going to change this one. So this is also at a junction, so it could go left, right, or down. This could go up, down, or left. And this could go left, right, or up. So this ghost here, let's click on this third ghost here. Go to costumes, go to make sure we're on the coloured one at the top and change the colour. Let's have a pink ghost here. So click there and there. Change the name of this to pink costume, like that. Go to code and just check that at the top we have pink costume there and we have pink costume there. Lovely. And then let's add one more. So I'm going to duplicate it again. And this one will position over here, I think. Yeah, just there. Again, I've done it next to a little opening. And what color shall we have this one? So let's click on the fill color. Let's go for something else. We could go for the blue one, but of course blue looks very similar to the color blue we've chosen. So I'm going to go for something different, maybe sort of an aqua blue perhaps, like that would do. I think that'll look good. So we'll just click that and we'll not call this blue because it'll be a bit confusing perhaps. We'll call this aqua, so aqua costume. And there we are, I've got aqua there and down here, that's all fine. But I've been moving the ghosts around, so of course their spawn positions are now different. So what I'm going to have to do, I've moved this first one as well, is I'm going to have to click on each ghost, and at the beginning where we have this spawn location, I need to change that. Now the simplest thing to do here is to simply split the code, get rid of this go to block, go to motion and grab a new go to block, because when we move a sprite, this block updates the coordinates. It won't change it once you've dragged it onto the code area, but it is updated on the left. So these are now the coordinates for where I've positioned this red ghost. And then if you remember further down here, when the ghost is respawned, we've also got the coordinate blocks down here. So what we can do is we can either pull those out or we can copy those numbers. We've got -89 and 91. Let's make that a little bit easier. Let's say that's -90, +90. You can hardly see any difference in the movement there. So -90, +90. So let's put it down here. So -90 and +90. And then again down here. So there's 3 coordinate blocks that we need to choose in total. So there we are. That's the red ghost done. Let's do the same thing now for the green ghost. So click on the green ghost. Start at the top, split the code, get rid of the coordinates block and bring the new one in. So we've got -183. Let's do -180. And let's call that 30. There we are. So -180 and 30. So then -180 and 30. You could simply pull these blocks out and replace them that way if you want to. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you are updating the coordinates. Right, time for Pinky. So bring that down, and Pinky's coordinates are, let's call that 80 and 20. So again, down here, we've got 80 and 20, and here 80 and 20. And then finally, we've got Clyde on the right here. So let's change his coordinates, and we've got there 220 and 20. The only reason I'm rounding them to the nearest number is it's just a little easier to remember them when typing them in here, but it doesn't really matter. Right, there we go then. So let's have a look at how those ghosts are moving. I'm going to go full screen and run the game. I'm not going to move Pacman for the moment. I'm just going to leave it. And you can see those ghosts are moving around the maze in a random way. Yeah, they're managing to escape. The green one there at the bottom, he's got out quite a little way. Red is dancing around that door. He might start coming down in a minute. The pink one has moved out a little bit. But I think I might still want to play around with those numbers in the end. I can always, of course, add more ghosts. Pinky is escaping quite well. So I think I could add more ghosts and I can change those numbers. And there's no reason at all why all of the ghosts have to have the exact same numbers. So let's just stop the game for a moment and just let's go for the blue one down here. So rather than having the distance as 20 to 50, I could put there, let's say 30 to 70 there. And then he's the only one with those new numbers. So he's going to move again slightly. Oh, I wasn't even looking at me there. So Pinky got me. There we are. So Pinky is dangerous. He's not after me again there. Let's just get that blue superpower, and if I can try and get up. Oh, I'm stuck. That's not good. That's not good at all. Am I going to make it? Yes. Can I make it again? No, I didn't make that one. There we are. So let's try that again. Let's go back up here. I'm going to get that pink ghost. That's that one there. Going to get you. Got you. Can we get this one as well? Yes, we can. So there we are. You can see that is working fine. So play around with the numbers in your ghosts, the number of ghosts, the movement of the ghosts, oh, that was close. And just see what works best for you. So we've added more tablets, we've added more super pills, we've added more ghosts. So what else do we need to do? Well, I'm going to show you one more thing to add, and then I'm going to just suggest some other things that you could consider adding. So the one thing that I need to think about now is ending the level. Because of course, at the moment, if I just run this again quickly there, we've got quite a lot of these pills, these tablets around here. But when I collect them all, we're going to end up with a situation where we have a completely empty maze, no more tablets to collect, and the ghosts will still be running around, and Pacman will still be running around as well, and he'll have nothing to do. All he's got to do then is avoid the ghosts. There's nothing else. So what we want to do is to have some way of counting the number of pills that are left on the screen, and then once that number is down to 0, so there are no more pills left on the screen, at that point we want to perhaps then respawn all the ghosts, respawn Pacman, respawn all of the tablets, but not change the score. So basically the whole level restarts, and then we can earn more basically on the score. Now we need to know how many of these tablets there are, and if you've got more tablets than I have here, you might be looking at that thinking, I have no idea how many I've got. There's a couple of different ways you could do this. Well, 3 different ways that you could do this. One is you could sit there and count them all up. And, if you've not got too many, that would work fine. The second option you've got is that you could look at all these sprites here and simply count up the number you've got, and then subtract from that the number of ghosts and Pacman. So we can see here, I've got a grid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we count down, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's sprite 23. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 by 5, so that's up to 50. 55, 60. And then these 4 here, 64. But 5 of the ghosts, 5 of the sprites are the ghosts and Pacman. So we've got 64 here minus 5, which means I've got 59 tablets around the screen. Now that includes the super pills, because they are obviously something for him to collect. So I would need to count on a variable for every single pill that's collected. I need to count 1, and then when I get to 59, or start at 59 and count down to 0, whichever way I want to go for it, when I get to that, I want to do a respawn. The third way in which you could do this is you could have a counter that counts every single time the score goes up. So you could do it that way as well if you wanted to. I think the easiest method is simply to look at this grid here. You've got 5 along the 5 columns here. So count the number of rows, multiply by 5, and then subtract the number of ghosts and Pacman. So let's go to variables now, and let's make a variable, and we'll call this pills left. There we go. And at the beginning of the game, let's do this in Pacman. So we'll go to the Pacman sprite, and at the beginning of the game, when it all starts, let's set the pills left to 59, because we have 59 pills left. I'm going to leave that one visible for the moment, but you probably don't want that to be visible later on. You could get rid of that later on if you want to. So if I was to run this now, of course, that wouldn't do anything because we aren't changing the pills left. In fact, we're not doing anything there because I haven't connected that code back up. So what we want to do now is to make sure that every time we collect a tablet, we are decreasing the variable pills left from 59 to 58 and so forth. So how are we going to do this? Well, there is going to be a little bit of code that we'll need to add, and we will need to copy that code into each of these sprites here. So this is an optional thing that you can do. You don't have to, but if you want to have multiple levels, this would be the way to do it. So in the sprite 1 here, which is the first of the tablets, so this is the code we've got for all of the tablets. It's the same in the big pills, apart from the fact that we have the broadcast super pill and the score of 25. So in here, what we want to do is when we change the score by 1, we could also change the number of lives, sorry, not lives, change the number of pills left by -1, because of course we're counting down. So once, if we touch the Pacman, we change pills left by 1, or by -1 rather, and also change the score by 1 and so forth. Now, of course, the thing is that when we change the number of pills left by -1, it's going to start at 59, go to 58, 57, 56 and so forth, but eventually it's going to get to 0. And when we get to 0, we will want to be able to end this level and start the new level. So we need to have an if block. Let's go into the controls section and grab an if block. And we'll need to know if the number of pills left is equal to 0. So we'll grab an equal, and from variables, we'll get the pills left and ask if that is equal to 0. And this can go straight underneath the change pills left. In fact, actually, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just reorganize those slightly so that the pills left is after the score has changed. So let's give him the score for collecting that last pill and then change it by -1. And then we can ask the question if, let's just pull that underneath there and put that back in. There we go. So if pills left is 0, then what we want to do? Well, basically, it's going to be to respawn. So we need to tell every single sprite in the game that the game is beginning again, or rather the level is beginning. So let's broadcast a message here. So into events, broadcast a message, a new message, this one, and this is going to be new level. So we'll click OK and put that broadcast message into there. So there we are. We've now got if the pills left is 0, then broadcast new level. So now what do we want to do? Well, if we're a tablet, if we're a pill here, what we want to do is when we receive that message that the new level is started, we want to make sure that we are shown, because of course it could be that this tablet's been collected already and is hidden. So all we need to do when we receive new level is to make sure that the tablet can show, like that. Now that's going to be the code that we'll need for the tablets, but you don't have to go through every single one of these sprites here one at a time, adding in the code that I've just shown you there. So there is a better way of doing this, what we need to do here is you've got the code in sprite 1, so we're in sprite 1, sprite 2, that code there obviously needs to be replaced. So all I'm going to do is grab, and be careful when you do this, grab the code in sprite 1, drag it over so that sprite 2 is kind of selected there. You can see it's, if I move it around there, sprite 2 is kind of wobbling a little bit. It's gone blue and it's wobbling. So I'm going to let go. Now it snaps back over to here, but let me show you what happens if I click on sprite 2 now. You'll see sprite 2 now has that new code, which means of course we don't need the old code. We can delete it and get rid of it. There we go. Now sprite 1 also has this block here. So this block also needs to be dropped onto sprite 2. So you now see sprite 2 has the same code as sprite 1. So what I'm going to do now is to grab this code here and simply drop it onto sprite 3, then drop it onto sprite 4, and then click and drop it onto sprite 5, and so forth. So I'm simply dragging and dropping this onto each of the sprites that I've got in my game. So drop it onto sprite 6. There we are. It's a little bit jumpy, that one. Sprite 7. I think it's just, am I zoomed in a little bit? I might be zoomed in. Let's just, I'm going to zoom out for this one actually a little bit because I think that might make it a little bit easier. There we are, sprite 7. And so I'm dropping this onto each one of these. Of course, if you don't like the idea of dropping the code onto each one of these sprites, the alternative, if you really want to do that, is to delete these sprites and simply duplicate the sprite 1 that has this new code on it. So you can do either of those. So that's the way in which we need to update the code for the tablets. So there's the new code for the sprite 3 and then sprite 4. So each of these now has that new code, and I simply get rid of the old code. Don't forget to get rid of it or you'll end up giving Pacman double scores. So once we've done that for all of these, let's have a think about the other things that need to be changed. So Pacman, of course, will also need to be respawned back at the beginning. So what we need to do here is say that when I receive the message, new level, so this is on the Pacman sprite now, when I receive new level, we need to make sure that he is visible because it's possible again that he got the last sprite and died at the same time. So let's make sure that he is shown, and then we need to bring him back to the spawn position. So his spawn position is this coordinate block here, so we'll duplicate that and put that there, and that's it. That's all we need to do for that one. And for the ghosts, same thing basically. So for the ghosts, when they receive that message, new level, so when I receive new level, then we need to make sure that it is visible. So we'll go to show. We'll also need to make sure that the superpower is not enabled. So we need to make sure that our variable blue is set to 0. And we'll also need to make sure, this is the red ghost that I am here, that the costume is now the red costume. And then of course we need to make him go back to the beginning. So I'm going to duplicate the coordinate block and put it in there like that. And again, because I've got this little new block of code here, rather than copying that into each one, what I can do is simply drag and drop that onto the green one. It's a little bit jumpy at the bottom there. Let's just check, did that go on there? Yes, it did. So this is the code now inside the green ghost, and you see that the one change I'll need to make here is the costume, because there is no red costume for the green ghost, it's the green costume. Also, of course, the coordinate block, that will also need to be changed, so let's just change those to the same coordinates we've got at the top here, so -180 and 30. There we go. And then let me just zoom in slightly on here, scroll down. Let's drag that block onto the pink ghost. There we are. So this is Pinky. And again, what we need to do is make those two changes there. So the switch costume to green costume needs to be pink costume, and the coordinates need to be 80, 20. And then finally, we'll change the coordinates for the blue one for Clyde. So Clyde, click on him now. He will need to have his costume not pink, but aqua, and his coordinates were 220, 20. So I've made the changes to Pacman and to all the ghosts and to the first 3 or 4 of the tablets, but not all of them. So of course my game won't work right now because I'm not going to be able to collect all 59 tablets. But what I will do is cheat a little bit and show you how that would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, let's just find a tablet that's near me. Let's scroll near the top because it's probably fairly central. I'm going to find one of these tablets that's quite close to where Pacman begins. They're all really spread out at the moment. Let's find one that's near the beginning. Oh, there we are. That wasn't too bad. This one up here. So this tablet here is sprite 14. So this one here, when we click on that one, we collect that one, what I want to do is to make sure that we are reducing the number of pills left. So I want to have that reducing code, that's sprite 14. Let's just copy the code from sprite 1 into sprite 14. So drag and drop that onto sprite 14, and of course that block there as well. Okay, let's zoom back out again, go sprite 14. So there's our code. That's the old code, we'll get rid of that. So what's the cheat that I'm going to do? Well, the cheat I'm going to do, we've got change pills left by -1, so it is minusing 1. What I'm actually going to do is simply at the beginning, instead of setting pills left to 59, I'm going to set pills left to 1, which means we only have to collect 1 pill in order for the level to end and for everything to respawn. So if I was to run the game now and click the green flag, you'll see we've only got 1 pill apparently left, even though I'm collecting a few more. And what I want you to look at is when I collect that pill just above me now in that middle bit, so not this one, but the one just above me there, when I collect it, the game will reset, Pacman will go back to the beginning, and all the ghosts will go back to the beginning as well. And in fact, the blue costume will come off. So let's do that as well. So there we are. We've collected the one at the top. Apparently the level was over, and you saw everything then instantly reset. We've also got pills left set back to 0. So of course, when the game does reset and we go to a new level, we will need to set pills left back to 59. So we'd need to do that as well. So we can simply do that anywhere. So I could do it on Pacman. When I receive new level, show Pacman, go back to the beginning, and then in variables, set number of pills left back to 59, as it should be. So I hope that makes sense. So you will need to simply make the changes to all of your tablets, the changes to the ghosts and Pacman, and the only other thing you might want to do is to put a slight pause before the ghosts are spawned, or before Pacman is spawned. So where we've got, let's click on this first ghost here, for example, you could do, when I receive new level, then we could put in a pause of about 3 seconds. Let's do that one here. Let's go to control and wait for 3 seconds, let's say. This is just for the red ghost now. So what that will do is give Pacman a little bit of a head start. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get that pill at the top, which apparently ends the level. You'll see that the whole game resets, but the red ghost will take about 3 seconds to spawn. So I'm going to grab the super pill there as well. So there we are, the whole game has reset. Now because the red ghost was blue, I think that slightly changed things there. So let's just go back. We'll probably need to make the changes, so do the pause rather, after we've done all the other changes. Let's just do that the other way around. So I'm going to put it that way around, wait 3 seconds, and then show. So it doesn't matter too much, but I'm going to do it that way around. So when we receive new level, we're also going to hide just in case. So I'll put a hide in there as well. So when we get a new level, because we're not sure, the ghost might be blue, it might be coloured, we don't know. So when I receive a new level, hide, switch the superpower off, change back into the normal costume, go back to the start point, wait 3 seconds, then show. So let's try that again now. So let's do the same thing we did before. Grab a super pill, then do that, and there you are. You see the red ghost is hidden for about 3 seconds. So that just gives us that little bit of a head start, which I know the real Pacman game does do. So there we are. We've got a working game, or at least you should have a working game. Obviously, I've not done the code for all of my tablets. We can have a look at that later on and just add that in. So at this point then, what is it that we can add to the game to improve it? Because there are certainly a few things missing from the game that we haven't got so far. Let me go through a few of those suggestions. I'm going to just pause this game for a moment just so that I can explain what those are. So first of all, sound. We do have a sound effect for when the Pacman character is caught by a ghost. But you could also have a sound every time he lands on a pill. So in the same way that we've got that ghost character, let's just go back to the ghost character there. Where are we? So when we get the broadcast got Pacman, you'll see that Pacman up here is then when he receives that got Pacman playing that sound. So you could have your sprites, every time they touch Pacman, somewhere in this if block here, you could put a sound. So a little ding, a little, you don't want too much noise, otherwise it's going to get really irritating. So you could have it just a little quiet ting sound every time he collects one of those. You could also do a slightly bigger noise for the super pills, perhaps. You could have a different sound effect for those. And of course, you could also play music during the entire game. So when the game starts in your Pacman game, Pacman code rather here, you could have a green flag, and when the game starts, you put in a forever block, and you're forever playing a particular sound, which could be a bit of music. So you could do that. Something I mentioned earlier on is about the lives. Now we've got this variable box at the top right here saying lives, but you could change that. So instead of having the number of lives, you could simply have the heart symbols. Now the way to do that would simply be to have a new sprite here, which would be called hearts, for example. And you would probably have draw your hearts out, whatever you want to do. So you could sort of draw a heart out. I'm going to put a little red dot there. And what I could do is copy and paste that 3 times. I'm not going to do the whole thing, just a quick demonstration. Duplicate that a couple of times, and on each one of these, get rid of one of those hearts like that. So we have a 3, 2, 1, and you can see on the game there how that's dropping down like that. And then each time Pacman loses a life, so whenever Pacman loses a life, let's get rid of that sprite there. Let's go back up to Pacman, there we go, and his code. So when I receive got Pacman, Pacman dies, and we could change lives by -1 still, that's important, we'll still want to keep a track of it, but we could also change the costume of the hearts to the next costume, so 2 and then 1. So you could do that as well. Something else that you can do is have different mazes. So I've got my backdrop here. I could have, just as I have costumes for characters, more than one maze. And when we go up to a new level, you could change to a different maze layout. So that's something else that you can consider doing. Another thing that the real Pac-Man game has is randomly appearing fruit. Of course, it doesn't have to be fruit, it can be anything you want. But there's a random bit of fruit that keeps appearing at the bottom somewhere, usually. And what that does is give Pac-Man extra bonus points. So you could have a random time and a sprite that has different fruit or whatever you want to have on that randomly switches to a costume that's visible, and when Pac-Man grabs that, he gets extra points. That's something else you could do. And finally, when you play the real Pac-Man game, what happens when Pac-Man grabs one of the super pills is the ghosts go blue straight away, but then there's a bit of a warning before the ghosts go back to the coloured appearance. So they tend to flash white. So in the real game, when you grab the super pill, let's just grab this here, grab the one at the top. So what would normally happen is you'd have about 10 seconds of blue ghosts, and then you'd have about 3 seconds where the ghosts would flash white, and then they would be dangerous again, which gives Pac-Man that little bit of a warning. So that's something else that you could add in as well to the game. I'm not going to show you how to do all those things, but hopefully if you've been looking at the code and thinking about how we're adding the code, why we're adding the code, and how that code works, you'll have the basic idea and understanding of how the game works so that you can make changes to it. And it's important that you do think about making changes to the code yourself so that you can make the game your own. So that's it for this tutorial series. Now, if you're looking at this video tutorial series on YouTube, then obviously you can leave a comment below. If you've done your game, it'd be great to share it, and you can share your game once you've actually produced your game. At the top here, click on the share button, the orange button there. This is now the page you can give to other people. So you can copy the address at the top here and email that or do whatever you want with it. If you have created a Pac-Man game on YouTube looking at these tutorials, please share the game, take the address at the top here and put that in the comments section below. That would be fantastic. Don't worry about doing this because nobody can change your game. So once you've created your game, if you share it, other people will be able to see inside your code, and yes, they can actually make changes to the code, but that'll be their own copy of it. It won't be your copy. So nobody will be able to change the code in your game if you share it. So don't be afraid of that, but it'd be fantastic if you could share your games, and if you do, I promise to play your game, leave a like and let you know what I thought of it. If, however, you are watching this video as part of the tutorial series on computerscience.click, then the next thing for you to do will be a quiz, which will give you a whole range of questions that will ask you about this game and about some of the blocks of code we've used and how they work and why we use them. And when you complete that quiz, you'll then get your own personalized certificate to confirm that you have successfully completed this course, and you can then print that certificate out. So I hope you enjoyed that project. If you have any problems or questions, obviously do get in touch. Either leave a comment in the video below if you're on YouTube, or use the contact page on computerscience.click and I will reply. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Have fun making your own game, and I look forward very much to playing your games when you successfully share them. Bye for now.